Welcome to MindBody TV. I am Dr. Kim Duramo, and I'm going to share a really potentially triggering topic today about the history of medicine, where we went wrong, and why this system will fall apart. But also, like, how not to let that trigger you when you find out what I'm going to share, and to instead let it be an invitation for your own awakening. Because we are moving into a world where we take personal responsibility, where we know we are creators, we are connected, and we are co-creating everything in our experience. And so there's no one who can take that away from us, and there's no one who can dupe us without our consent or our permission on some level. It's just a time to get more conscious so that we can create it differently. So welcome. I'm so glad you are here. For those of you who don't know me, I am Dr. Kim Duramo, and I'm a physician who was in the system for many, many years, but always knew that I was here to be part of creating the new system, creating what is really the solution, and part of the awakening doctors, awakening healthcare practitioners, awakening those who don't even know that they're part of this new system, to bring authentic healing modalities that are arrived at from within, from the wisdom and the intelligence that creates us, instead of through the hierarchical authoritarian system where we're told what we can and we can't do, or how to practice medicine, or what's allowed and what's not allowed, or what's real and what works and what doesn't. But it's actually not come from a space of truth, but from a space of kind of like meeting the needs of the system before the needs of the receivers. And so when you realize what I'm going to share about the history, it's meant to just be awakening, because I realized a long time ago that to offer new resources and show people a new way, part of that was the dissolution of what they think is the right way. Like, they've learned through immense amounts of propaganda and marketing and really creative, manipulative ways to get people to think this is the only way, this is the right way, this is the best way, and that what's in the medical industrial complex was arrived at because it was the best healing modality, when in fact it was arrived at because it was the best business plan. And so when I'm going to share these things with you, just kind of like be present to what comes up in your body and what arises in you. Use a lot of breath, because none of this needs to be triggering or be like something hard. It's just something we're ready to see. We're ready to see now that we don't need to keep outsourcing our power or giving our power over to an authoritarian system that tells us what's right for us and what's best for us and what's true, but to sort of just check in that you have wisdom in you and you can drop into your body. Like I teach in all my programs, especially Embracing Health. That is what we are doing to activate the body to heal, to activate conscious creation in your life. You got to drop into the body. And so when we do that, we are powerful, and you will see, you will activate your power. Okay. So basically way back when, over 100 years ago, medicine was practiced with apprenticeship. You would be inspired, or maybe someone saved your grandmother's life or your own life, and you would study that. You would learn that from someone who was proficient or mastering it, and you would learn. And then when you became adept enough, you'd sort of be set on your way, still with guidance and mentorship, to begin to practice it yourself. And so you would find things that really resonated with you, that were true, that you saw the effects and knew in your gut and your blood, this is for me. And so naturally, what rose to the top were the things that worked, the things that were most effective. What didn't so much maybe have as much application, there weren't so many people practicing that. But sometimes there's something for everyone. And so you would naturally be able to find like that practitioner for you, or that modality. And there were some issues with that system where there wasn't a lot of standardization, or like, how do I know what's right? But at that time, people were still thinking more intuitively. They were more connected within and more guided. We have now been in a system that was created based on, hey, how can we make money at this? There's a huge business model here. And so a bunch of very wealthy businessmen created a conglomerate. And it wasn't just about the medical industrial complex. They were the very same individuals who were involved in the financial industrial complex. So you've got like the Federal Reserve, which is neither a federal organization, it's not a government organization, it's a private organization, nor is it a reserve of any real value. They're just printing notes and printing money and kind of like letting everybody know, hey, this is what you got to use. But it was created from the same conglomerate. And the media was also created from these individuals. So they sort of like had jurisdiction over all of these main power centers and created a centralized medical system, meaning we're going to tell you, we're going to run everything. We're going to set up the educational system. We're going to set up the, hospital system. We're going to set up the insurance system. We're going to set everything up. So you don't have to worry about a thing. We'll take care of you, right? So you outsource those decisions and all of that power to this centralized system. And this has happened with money. This has happened with food. This has happened with government. This has happened, of course, with medicine. This has happened with education. And so all of these major power centers have been centralized, not centralized to all kinds of distinct location. They're actually the same conglomerate at the helm of all of them. And the other one's militia, so our government. And so these individuals got together like, how can we take over and benefit from this? And they didn't create a system based on, wow, this is by far the most powerful modality for healing and what will truly benefit humanity. They made the decision based on what can we reliably own, control, and profit from. So you can't own something and make your profit from something you can't patent, for example. So it wasn't going to be like the midwifery or natural medicine or nutrition or, other healing modalities that are organic. It was, in fact, the pharmaceutical model. And so what happened then, and this was right around the early 1900s, late 1800s, many medicines were very toxic. The founder of osteopathic medicine, Andrew Taylor Still, was an MD who lost his children, a couple children, lost his brother to really bad diseases, and that the medicines that were given were even worse than the disease. And he felt powerless and looked for what would really help people heal, had a massive awakening experience, and came to see that, in fact, our consciousness is creating what's happening in our chemistry, and that our structure and function are related, that the body can heal itself, and that the mind and body are connected. This was incredibly revolutionary in the late 1800s, and he was ostracized from the medical society. People were like, that guy's a kook. We're not going to go near him. However, many doctors noticed he was the one with lines wrapping around the building from people traveling days to come and see him, and got curious. Wonder what he's doing over there. Let me check it out. And many of them then began to learn, began to help people, began to make a huge difference in medicine. And of course, the osteopathic medicine educational system was created. And now it's like 25% of doctors are DOs, doctors of osteopathy. 25%, including myself, in the medical system are DOs, osteopathic doctors. It isn't necessarily carried through, meaning they kind of got hijacked in around 1965, where all these DOs became absorbed as MDs, and hey, we're under one roof now and we can control everybody. And the AMA just absorbed all these DOs in the United States and made them MDs. So they sort of kept trying to like bury that organization and bury that type of medicine. And they did succeed. So again, around the early 1900s, there were these campaigns that they did to propagate their mode of the allopathic pharmaceutical centralized, what's now Western medicine, and slander everyone else. So this was in no way an organic rising to the top of what naturally worked best and was most beneficial to humans. It was an overt, well, it's kind of covert, but it was a purposeful slander campaign with millions and millions and millions of dollars. It actually continues to this day, put toward making sure people didn't want to use these other modalities and did want to use these centralized allopathic modalities. And so, we went from this like organic process of what was naturally beneficial would grow to exactly the opposite. So all of these, they made up terms like quack, which you may have heard of. Oh, that person's a quack. And then there was like a conscious propaganda campaign in the media. And it's really a 3-part marketing strategy. You may recognize it because it's still being used today. Where the first one is like, it's just the science, right? So superiority. Anyone knows, you go this way. You don't go to that quack over there. I mean, like, they don't know what they're doing. Here's the science. But it was like their science, right? Like, let me show you. You can manipulate science a million different ways. And so that was like the first approach where they would use these smear campaigns to like squash all these other modalities people were interested in and, you know, paying for. The second one was, oh, don't be that guy. Sorry. We're going to have to figure that out. Don't be that guy. Don't be, don't be stupid. Like, you know, you're not going to go over there. You're not going to get duped. There's a snake oil salesman. Like, don't fall for it. And so a shame campaign, if you went to this lesser thing, like, oh, don't get duped by the lesser thing. You got to do the real thing. And so like positioning. And then the third one was really preying on the innate, like our nature is to want to do good for society, like want to be an upstanding human. And so it was like, do your duty, right? You've got to, do good for others. This is the right thing. Support the system, right? And you might have seen these recently in the recent, like, big campaigns that have happened that were put out. Those were intentional campaigns that were created to manipulate the masses. And like, in a way, they kind of worked. Not everybody really fell for it, but that's the intentional campaign. It's like, well, we're doing it for your own good, but it still comes from that authoritarian system where like, you can't think for yourself. If these things were really such a great idea, you wouldn't have to spend billion-dollar campaigns to convince someone to do it, or like give away $1 million if you show up and get this, injection. If it really were wise, we're not stupid. Like, we all want to do what's best for us. We all want to do what's best for our family. We all want to do what's best for humanity. Why would you have to manipulate people to do it if it really is the right thing? It'll reveal itself. It'll be obvious. Okay, so that's what really happened. And I want you to comment on this. Like, is this triggering you? Do you already know this? And I think a lot of people in the community will be somewhat familiar with some of these things. And I want to know how you found this broadcast. Are you new? Have you been tuning in for a while? I want to hear from you and connect. We do these broadcasts every week. I really love to tune into where you are and what you want to hear about, and how is your awakening journey going? So is this triggering you? And like, how does this land? Okay, so this sort of like monopoly that happened, and I sort of think of the big six: medicine, media, the big 6 M's, medicine, media, money, the financial system, the militia, so government systems. Yes, I think most people are seeing now that they're kind of been hijacked, that people aren't really, it's like a career as a politician, and who's paying you? It's not just the government people, it's a huge amounts from these very conglomerates to influence what's happening in the government. The monkeys, which I think of like education, a lot of the educational system is like, sit in your seat, do as you're told, be obedient minions, because we could call that one the minions. Rockefellers, they took over the educational system around the exact same time as the medical industrial complex. It all happened at the same time, to begin to teach the masses how to be good pawns and good minions and good listeners, and not think for themselves, but be obedient and do as they're told. So like, perfect, right? You cannot rule a global society who knows their power. You cannot rule and manipulate a global society that is not in fear. And so no one can manipulate you when you release that fear. And that's like one of the main things I teach for self-healing. So medicine, media, money, militia, minions, education, and then food. The food industrial complex, which most people are aware of now, is like very centralized. We're not going to pick something in the garden down the street or have like sustainable, food economy in local areas. It's like all been centralized. So if those centralized systems shut down, well, we could just starve. Kind of crazy, because we do have the ability to feed the world like how many times over, if we would implement these sustainable, very affordable strategies. So it's like, do the people in charge just not realize that? Yeah, you're not supposed to be in charge. You're supposed to be in charge of yourself. And so this whole centralized, the whole concept of centralized systems is really what's falling away. And just know, like, it's okay. It's all for your benefit. And so what happens when you centralize medicine? We're really beginning to see. We're no longer thinking through our own awareness, through our own intelligence, like really connecting to the intelligence within ourselves. It's being outsourced. And so the medical education system was also taken over. The AMA was created, as well as the AOA, the American Osteopathic Association, because they wanted to have control and jurisdiction over these doctors. You can't control a global society in abundant health. So you got to have the system be like good enough that people keep paying for it, but not so good that they actually heal. And that's really what we've got. And so, and not so bad that they die, because then we have no customers. It's like, just keep them barely alive, but they still have diabetes, and they still have high blood pressure, and they still have fill in the blank with chronic illness. And now this is one of the sickest countries in the history of the world, with like paying the most amount for medical system. So you don't have to think too hard to see it's not working. So they did these slander campaigns. They did this like promotion to have this one system rise to the top. Now, when you realize that, it really helps you begin to look at, what might be the right approach for me? Maybe you have cancer. Maybe you have a chronic disease. Maybe you just have anxiety or depression, or like you want to think, what's really going to support me the most? And there are systems in medicine with perspectives like Chinese medicine or Ayurvedic medicine that really have a good handle on, why is your blood pressure high to begin with? Why do you have diabetes and you're not in, you're in this metabolic continuum of badness, that the conventional medical model doesn't have any understanding of or any answers for. We can prevent you from dying today, but like you're still sick. So that was part of why I went into ER. Thought this is a really wise way to practice in that system. If your arm is off, we can put it back on. We can, your heart is stopped, we can start your heart. And I believe in that, and I've utilized that myself with so much gratitude. Some of you know from the broadcast I shared a couple of weeks ago, I had a medical procedure, like a major surgery, and it was so restorative for me and so powerful and so transforming, and I'm so grateful. But we want to use that. It's maybe like 15% of what it would be, meaning we'd be using that for like 15% of the things instead of 99.9% of the things, right? Where that system is meant to be utilized. Great. It's awesome. I had a C-section with my first child, and that was a godsend and a lifesaver, and I'm eternally grateful. And that system is meant to be used as a sliver of the whole spectrum of what's really available. And so I wanted to share this broadcast so you see like, maybe I've been a little brainwashed and thinking, nope, this is the right way, and I don't want to look at anything else, versus like, wait a minute, let me just delete everything I've been taught and tune into what I know. What is the truth in me? Right? We got to get curious in order to arrive at the truth. You cannot be in the judgments or the conclusions or the brainwashing, propaganda, whatever that's affected the way we see things, or the judgments we have. I would never go to a doctor like that, or that's not a real doctor. Well, if someone has something that can change your life, probably should be open to considering it. It doesn't mean you're going to go in that direction. It just means you're going to check it out. Trust your guidance system. You are intelligent. You're not going to get scammed. You don't have to be afraid. I'm like, I'm skeptical. Don't dupe me. Like, you've been taught you're not so smart. You are infinitely intelligent, and you can arrive at the awareness of what's the best approach for me. What's the best approach for my highest level of health and vitality? And so I mentioned these other systems like Ayurveda or Chinese medicine, where they can look at the body in an entirely different perspective of understanding the heat and the cold and the elements of like earth, water, air, fire, and how these live in the body and influence your physiology, and how when we rebalance them, the disease can completely resolve. But if you've been bought into those, the propaganda, you don't want to hear about that. That's less than, and that's, who's going to do that, right? Because like I said, it's the superiority, it's the judgment and shaming. And then it's like playing on your nature of wanting to do what's right. And so you don't need to be manipulated to do what's best for you. You can let that go and connect within, because it will lead you to the solutions, to the approaches, to the modalities, and to the medicine that really works for you. The other thing I wanted to share is like, nobody can take your power. So if it's triggering to you, like, wow, we've been manipulated and they've done this and they've done that, and there's like victimization, take a big deep breath. No one can control you without your consent. So whether it was conscious or unconscious that you submitted to these systems and played along with the idea that I don't know what to do, but please tell me, you don't have the intelligence and the innate healing capacity, it's okay, because it's time for us to wake up now, not yesterday, not a year ago. It's perfect that things played out as they did and maybe got worse, quote unquote, and maybe there has been some loss in your life. Let it awaken you to begin to live consciously. And the best way to go about that is curiosity. Just be curious. No one can manipulate you when you're open and curious, because you don't have hard edges of like, I'm not going to do that. You're just open, and then your wisdom can guide you. So consider what might be the best approach. It lets your mind work in a whole new way. It lets your physiology get activated into the healing response. And it really lets you source your intelligence, that innate intelligence that created you and is still here coursing through you. And that's why I created the American Institute of Mind-Body Medicine. I just wrote my second book, Be Your Own Healer, to share about this. And like, you can tap into that wisdom. You can activate it. You can let it do things for you. And remembering like, I'm a force field. I am electromagnetic. I am having an impact on everything in my life. And even if that wasn't as activated yesterday, now is the time, and it's okay. So forgive the past. Let it serve your awakening, and do choose to take responsibility for consciously creating your life. So I'll include the link here for the Be Your Own Healer book, because it is on pre-order right now. And it really shares about the electromagnetics. You're an energy field, basically. So what's like the quantum science of that? Your body heals itself. How do we activate that? Your mind and body are connected. What does that even mean? And how do I begin to use that in a way that's beneficial? It's not about thinking positive or controlling your thoughts. And so this is all in the book, Be Your Own Healer, and I'll make sure to include the link here. We will be here every week live for MindBody TV at 11 a.m. Mountain Time, broadcasting on a new topic. If you didn't see the last couple of items we did about getting out of fight or flight, it will be so helpful, especially if you're hearing this information and it's triggering, because when we're in fight or flight, we're just so easily triggered by everything. But when we learn to turn that off and activate the parasympathetic nervous system, we really let in the intelligence, let in the information, and we know what to do. So those will be really useful. And you can also go to our quiz, our brand new quiz we have on my website, that will give you the tools to unwind that fight or flight triggered nervous system right now, so you function from your wisdom. So that quiz is at drkimd.com. All right, what else did I want to say? Yeah, don't give your power away. You give your power away when you're in fear. So just soften the body. Remember, it's okay that I'm in fear. Don't try to not be in fear, because if you're in fear, you're just fighting against yourself. If you try to not be, it will naturally resolve when you welcome what's here. All right, that is what I wanted to share. We are creating an organic medical system, a conscious medical system. And it's not one that comes from the top down authoritarian hierarchy. It's actually one that comes from within ourselves. If you are inspired to be a part of this system, meaning you're awakening to healing gifts that you have, or an inspiration to meet the needs of humanity and learn how you can help and assist, and for yourself and others, really allow true healing to happen, tune in to what we're doing, because I'm working with practitioners. I am assisting that awakening in your system, so there's clarity of who am I here to be? How can I create these amazing outcomes for my patients or my clients or my family and my children or just my loved ones around me, and be a healing force field on the planet. If you're already working as a practitioner or you're not, I definitely want to hear from you on this, because I am creating a certification program in mind body medicine, and we will be inviting the world to that in the future. So please reach out if that's something that inspires you or really connects and resonates with you. I have been guided for decades of my life, and it's created unthinkable things that most people would have said were impossible. And because I'm surrendering to that and letting it show me, the impossible becomes possible. And that is how this new system will be created. Miracles are happening and healing every day. So if you're struggling or suffering with an illness, physically, mentally, or emotionally, or just patterns in your life that are keeping you clamped down into fight or flight, know that there are solutions here and you can access them. And I'm grateful to be a part of assisting that. So be sure to subscribe at drkimd.com. Purchase the Be Your Own Healer book on pre-sale and be part of the community in the Mind Body community on Facebook. So much love to you. Thank you for being here. Like the video, subscribe, share this with someone you love, because this is going to awaken the world just by listening to this information, just by watching this video. It is awakening this knowing in you. So much love to you, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you for tuning in to MindBody TV. I would love to hear from you. Post a comment with any question, insight, aha, or just to say hello. Make sure you subscribe. Hit that subscribe button so you stay tuned for weekly episodes. I'll see you next week.